Hey, how you doing? I'm Steve Folland. Welcome to another one. This episode of Being Freelance is supported by Freelancer magazine, helping you grow a freelance business you love, sharing inspirational stories from freelancers around the world, freelance-specific business advice, practical tips, trends, events, and lifestyle features. Freelancers across 25 countries are already subscribed to Freelancer magazine. Make yourself one of them at freelancermagazine.co.uk and you'll be swelling those sweet glossy pages before you know it. Thanks very much to Freelancer magazine. Right now, let's find out what it's like being freelance. For illustrator and arts educator, Fredde Lanka.
I have a little bit of a tendency to like anything that I start as a creative project becomes a project and not just like a hobby. So I'm trying to like teach myself to like restrain myself a little bit more with that. Sometimes it's good to just like meet people, and then if you need more time to either just work on your own practice and figure out what you want to do, then I think that's a good thing. And just getting a rejection first doesn't mean that they don't want to hear from you in the future. Ask, can I get an extended deadline? Because most of the time people will say, yes, it's fine, of course. Deadlines are just made up dates and they don't actually mean anything. That's kind of like the truth. Deadlines doesn't exist really.
Yeah, there's Fredde, whose real name is actually Frederick Anderson, but Fredde Lanka is the name you may well know from Instagram or online with his work. So fun, colourful, very funny, often exploring queer culture and sex and being part of the queer community. The work he does for young LGBTQ plus people is amazing. It's something that we talk a lot about, so that coming up very soon indeed. Actually, I find it interesting, like another freelancer who finds success in, I guess, like sticking to what they believe in, their values. And that brings them success, not just through work, but also through how they feel about it as well. And we've had a few like that already this season, like Greg and Ray and Ashwin. Go back, listen to them if you haven't already. Anyway, Fred's story coming up in a moment. Just to remind you, if you're new to freelancing or maybe you're in your first year, don't figure it all out yourself. Check out the course at beingfreelance.com. It's literally made for you. And if you've any questions about it, just reach out to me online, won't you? Also, we've got the book club coming soon. Next book we're reading is Keep Going. It's all about staying creative in good times and bad. Details at the website. And that's not just with me or you, but with your BFFs, your Being Freelance friends in the Being Freelance community. Come and join us. Loads of freelancers from around the world hanging out together. All the details at beingfreelance.com. Right now, though, let's chat to freelance illustrator and arts educator, Fredde Lanka. Hey, Fredde.
Hello.
As ever, how about we get started hearing how you got started being freelance?
So how I started being freelance is that I was living in Sweden, and I come from like a part quite like north in Sweden, didn't really know what to do, but my town just happened to have like a set design degree. So I actually studied set design before for 2 years. And in that course, you go on like internships, but also like after you kind of do a lot of like free labor as an intern, where you learn quite a lot of things. But now when I think about it, I think that's kind of like messed up, and I wouldn't really like suggest that people do work for free because that's not really fair. But I did learn quite a lot of things there that prepared me for my life that I have now, because I eventually started getting like paid work. I moved to Stockholm, lived there for 3 years, and kind of like maintained a freelance life there, working on different productions, kind of learning how to handle budgets and project planning and stuff. Normally now when I work with people, they tell me that I have an exceptional logistical mind compared to like a lot of other illustrators that they work with when it comes to time management and planning, which I guess is a good thing in many ways. So I guess like when I decided to like change careers, I moved to London, studied here, did a BA in illustration at Camberwell College of Arts. So when I was in school there, I was kind of already like prepared for what life was going to be after. It was just going to be different kind of jobs than movies, but the same idea of like invoicing and keeping track of your finances and the taxes were kind of already there as a base. So when I graduated now here, like I kind of worked at a cafe for a bit and like did some jobs on the side, and eventually just took it quite slow until I was like ready to just go full time. And then, I felt quite prepared at the time, I guess.
So you were prepared in knowing how to run that business, but you can't go invoicing people unless you get clients. So
Yeah,
how did you get those first clients?
I guess I took some time after uni because we had, I don't know if you know, there's an illustrator, 3D animator called Jack Sachs. He came in as like some form of like, I don't know if it was like a mentorship program or something, but he came in and ran a few sessions with a few of us in my year. And he just like told a story about how it took him like a while after school to start like drawing the things that he wanted to actually draw. So I kind of followed that advice for a bit and kind of spent almost like a year in a studio. And I was in there like on the weekends when I was doing my cafe job and kind of just did whatever came up in my head and kind of just drew it and made it. Played around with some ceramics and stuff and kind of just wanted to figure out what I wanted to do outside of the context of getting grades from tutors and trying to like please other people with your work and trying to just please yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of just took some time focusing on that, and eventually like work just started like coming in from people noticing the work I was just naturally doing for myself.
So where were you sharing that? How were they seeing it?
Just Instagram, to be honest. As many issues as I have with social media now, I do have a lot to owe for like Instagram as a platform. I don't think it's as easy today to start a career like that, but for me at the time, this is now like 8 years ago, it was quite helpful.
Yeah. So were you posting regularly? Were you like being deliberate about it, I guess?
I didn't think too much about it, but I was in quite like a high production period of my life. So I guess I was like posting like every day almost for quite a long time, which became a little bit obsessive towards the end. And now I don't really do that anymore because it's not really like good for my mental health.
And ceramics as well, you said?
Yeah, so I managed a pottery cafe as I was studying and like after. So that was like my cafe job. So I was like using their kiln to like fire some ceramics after school, and it was just something I got into because I was doing a lot of work on the computer when I was studying, and I was kind of like fed up with sitting in front of a screen all the time. So I kind of started making these ceramics just to get away from that. But then it kind of happened that ceramics took up quite a big part of my life for a bit because I got like a big commission from Liberty London after like a year of graduating. So then I kind of spent like 6 months or more kind of only doing ceramics as well, which was also like a interesting experience, but also very like bad in many ways. Because I went from being like a self-producing person to then having to like employ assistants and like becoming this like production house because they ordered like so much of me, and I wasn't really like prepared for that to like happen that quickly. So that was like a bit of like a good experience, but also very, very bad in many ways because I burnt myself out quite severely after.
Whoa. Because I was going to say, like, who were those first clients approaching you? So Liberty is probably known in quite a lot of countries around the world, but it's like a big London, sort of famous department store, right?
Yes.
And so somebody from there saw your ceramics on Instagram and commissioned you.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I think it happens more often than people might think, because I think that's how they kind of like get a lot of like new people in there. But then it's the difficulty when they speak to someone who's like an individual maker as if they're like a brand, which doesn't really work because you can't really apply the same mentality to a single person to as you do to like a big brand, like I don't know, if you would order something from like Adidas or like a more like known like homeware brand that has like a factory that they make things in. I was just making things from my like Southeast London studio, so it was a bit of a different vibe where they were just like, yeah, do this, and I was like, okay. But yeah.
So, like, if that opportunity were to come around again,
I would say no to it.
oh really?
I would say no to it. Yeah, especially now I do like more things that make me a bit more happy than like mass producing of like ceramics. So now I like run my youth group and I have my illustration practice, and I also like teach illustration at university. So I kind of have a few more things that like give me more joy because they're not as like repetitive as like making the same mug 100 times, if that makes sense.
It's interesting. Yeah, so it's not just about, I guess, the stability of a big job or the money of a big job. It's about spreading it out and enjoying what you do.
Yeah, I think I have. I get quite bored quite quickly because my attention span isn't that long. So if I like do the same thing too many times, I probably just naturally will want to switch and do something else. I don't just get like stuck in that like rut. So normally I would go in between like doing illustration work, ceramic work, and then like education work, and it kind of bounces off each other to help my like mind feel a bit more like nourished, I guess, or like inspired.
Yeah. And so, how did the illustration work take off? Like, it wasn't like Harrod suddenly ordered 60,000 tea towels.
No, that was a bit more like a slow run, I think, and it kind of just happened gradually. But I was still quite like, even when I was doing my ceramics, I was still quite productive and like doing these like little mini comics, or I was just doing simple, just like drawings of people or sceneries and things like that. I probably wouldn't say that my illustration career became more stable until maybe last year or like during when the lockdowns happened, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd got illustration work here and there, and I usually would like ask like a queer person. I normally would get like a big commission during like Pride, because it's like tokenism. Because that's when they need the gay illustrator to come out of his like little dungeon and like draw something for them, and then they ignore you for the rest of the year. But since lockdown happened, I got like quite a lot more like stable income, and I got an agent last year, which was helpful as well, in regards to like someone arguing for like being paid properly and stuff like that as well. So I think the past like 2 years have been quite like good for just my illustration work, and it's allowed me to do like a bit more big things like that, because I think before that I would only get like big jobs during like June, which is Pride month.
And did you go out to get an agent, or did they come to you?
I was hassling her for since I graduated. Which will be really funny if she listens to this, because we have a good relationship now. But I was just like very like keen of working with someone from that agency. But then she ended up starting her own agency last year, and she asked me if I wanted to come aboard because she thought I was like ready for it then, which felt really good. It was quite like a affirming moment for me, I guess.
Yeah, but that I don't want to say rejection. That, well, yeah, okay. But that initial rejection didn't put you off at all.
Not really. I guess like, you were fresh out of uni. I wasn't really sure what direction I was going in myself either. And when I do look at my illustration work from back then compared to now, like my work is like way more confident than it used to be.
Mm.
So I kind of like see that sometimes it's good to just like meet people, and then if you need more time to like either just work on your own practice and figure out what you want to do, then I think that's a good thing. And just getting a rejection first doesn't mean that they don't want to hear from you in the future. So I think that might be like a good advice for people, to be honest.
I mean, you mentioned being ignored the rest of the year outside Pride, but for that to happen, that must have meant that you were perhaps right from the start putting yourself out there to create, I guess, the artwork that people would see now if they go to your website, for example, which shows your values, I guess.
Mm. No, I guess I've been quite focused on like, I mean, I've done quite a lot of like work with community projects, and I did quite a lot of like work with the Outside Project, which is like the UK's first LGBTQIA plus homeless shelter. And I've done a lot of like posters for club nights and venues that are like queer venues and queer club nights here in London. So that was quite like a big like part of my income in regards to illustration, just doing posters for events for people. And eventually that also like leads to bigger jobs. But I've done quite a lot like more like, I don't know how you describe it. I wouldn't say like intimate projects, but like with just like people that I've met in person here through like just networking within the queer community, and people tell their friends about the work that I do. And like sometimes it's for like charity events, and sometimes it's for like bigger things. And like I guess like those kinds of things were meant that I got like a little bit of a reputation in the night scene or like nightlife here.
Mm.
And I've gotten like other jobs via that because people went to those venues, saw the poster, and they were like, "Oh, who made this?" And then they contacted me because of that. So it was quite like good exposure to having all of these like posters just like plastered all over like East London so people could see them. So I guess that's like kind of like how I was like maintaining my illustration practice in like a commercial sense since I was graduating as well.
Is there ever sort of like a dilemma or an issue where, you know, like how sometimes we get approached and it's like, oh, can you do this for free? Or there's almost this, can you do it for free hanging over you because you know it's a good cause or it's something you believe in? Like, how do you address that when it shows up?
I think when you're like out of school and you might not really know like systems of power and how all of that works, and like, you know, if a grassroots organization reaches out to me and asks me to do like a poster, I would probably be the first person to say yes and do it for nothing, if it's something that I believe in. But if it would be like a sports club for like straight people, I wouldn't give a shit because I'm like, I don't really care for this. Like, I'd rather than just work on my own stuff. But if it's like a queer organization that reaches out to me, I'm more than happy to like give discounts or talk about what budgets they have. But then if you work with like a bigger like queer charity, they have money because they have funding, so they should pay you properly. So it's like things like that you start to take into account, and you learn more and more, and you kind of know when people are kind of trying to take the piss and trying to like see what they can get out of you instead of just being upfront with their budget. So now I think like if people say that they want to do for free, I make quite like a hard cut on like what I would be prepared to do and how much I would be prepared to do for free. And then if people want to pay me, I usually just tell me what the budget is, and I can tell you what I can do for that money rather than you having like a back and forth with me. It just goes quicker that way, I feel.
Yeah. And what would you say, you know, you said like things sort of picked up during the lockdowns over the last couple of years. Was there anything in particular that happened? Because actually, you also said you got lots of work out of, you know, designing posters for, you know, nightclubs or whatever, and clearly that sort of stuff wasn't happening. So
Yeah, I think I had quite like a bit of a chaotic start to the lockdowns and stuff because I kind of like all of my like teaching jobs kind of disappeared. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. So I kind of like didn't really have any income at the start of like the first lockdowns. I kind of just posted on Instagram, like, does anyone want like a cheap digital portrait? And then I kind of drew like hundreds of these portraits for people, which ended up like then becoming like how I would like sustain myself for a while. So I just drew portraits for like a while, a couple of months there. And then Pride Month came, and I got like, because kind of like rewinding. So when the lockdown happened as well, a few of my friends started this night called Queer House Party, which was like one of the like first like online on Zoom like club nights for like queer people. And I was doing their illustration work as well. So I got noticed quite well for doing their work and doing these portraits that I were doing. And I got quite a lot of things from that, if that makes sense. So that is kind of something that kind of like spiraled into this like quite a lot of attention that I wasn't really prepared for because I didn't really think it was going to lead anywhere. But now, I mean, I've been working with Queer House Party now since then. And I've gotten like other jobs by people going to those events and seeing those illustrations and via the portraits as well, like someone that bought a portrait for their friend, maybe their like friend worked somewhere and they wanted to employ me to do something for their company, or people would just see them on Instagram and be like, hey, we like that, like you should do something like that for us. Like,
so cool. Is it like a snowball effect?
yeah, kind of. Yeah. And then the youth group that I run now also kind of started in that period, and that's also kind of grown really quickly, and now that's also like we're funded by Arts Council now, and we run like weekly sessions, so that's also like something that kind of grew out of it. So like I guess after like a year of lockdowns, I was probably like more financially stable than I've been since I graduated.
And the youth group, is that the Queer Youth Art Collective?
Yes, exactly.
So how did you get into starting that?
I'm trying to remember what years all of this is, but I did quite a lot of work for Camden Arts Centre before lockdown. I think I started in 2018 running their families program, and then I moved on to their youth group that they do on Saturdays. And that's like a general youth group where they did all these amazing art things. But we kind of me and my colleague Letitia were working there together, both queer people, also kind of noticing that there's something that a general art group can't really provide for young queer people that want to develop their art, because there's a lot of topics that queer people want to discuss in regards to just body, sexuality, politics, that in a room full of potentially straight people who don't understand, where you then have to justify all these things, it doesn't really necessarily feel quite safe. So I had kind of done a few workshops with this group based in Hackney called Indigo, which is a mental health group for young LGBT people based in Hackney or surrounding areas. And there I met this art therapist named Susie Langsdale. So I kind of reached out to them, and we kind of decided to start this group together. So we ran a pilot of it in 2019, which was just this initial thing where we just invited a bunch of young people and artists to come and tell us what they think that group should be, so it wouldn't just be our voices deciding what people needed. And then after that pilot, we had all these big plans of what was going to happen, but then COVID happened and everything kind of fell apart. But then I kind of just saw that there was an opportunity to take it online, because there was people just being stuck at home needing something to do. So I got a little small pot of money from this organization called Homotopia, who had advertised that they were seeking applications for these grants that they were giving out in response to COVID. So I got that, and then I kind of just started running it online from home on Zoom. And at the start, there was just me and this artist named Mira, who kind of joined us as well, Mira Shakti Osborne. Fused our resources a little bit and ran this group from I think April to July, and then it kind of just took off from there. And my friend Dex came on board and started helping me writing funding bids, because we saw that there was quite a big need for this group. And now we have we're in our the end of our first funded year by Arts Council, where we now run sessions in person and online at the same time. So people can join from Zoom, or they can come to our London space where we have free art supplies. So it's kind of, also snowball effect there, I feel.
Yeah.
But it's I wouldn't have been able to maintain it if I didn't get all of the support from people like Dex or the people that we work with. We have a long list of artists that run workshops with us now. And all of the young people that come to tell us what they want as well, that we kind of listen to and do our best to please.
Oh man, I love it. And also it's interesting about sometimes, or maybe you do, certainly I don't necessarily think, oh, here's an idea, and you feel like it all has to be on your own back, when in fact you can collaborate, and you can also seek out, there's groups out there who have money to help with these kind of things.
Yeah. But then applications and stuff is a bit, excluding. English isn't my first language, and academic English is definitely not something that I have to my disposal, which is why I needed someone else to do that for me. So it's all this thing about when you do collaborations with people, it's about filling in the gaps, seeing what you can do for other people. And that's kind of how I view when I work with grassroots organizations as an illustrator. I see what I can do for them with the tool of the art that I make. How can I help them get their message across, or boost it, or what can I be of use for that they can't do themselves? And that's kind of how you should operate in groups, I feel.
Love Fredde so much. Okay, more from him in a moment, but just want to take a second to say thank you to Ahrefs for supporting Being Freelance this season as well. Do you want more Google traffic? Are you struggling to rank and not sure what to do about it? Then check out Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. It's free. Basically, it audits your website and then prioritizes the needed changes to improve your search rankings. I've been using it on beingfreelance.com, and this week it was telling me about the missing meta tags and H1 tags, or where my alt text was too long. And if, like me, you're thinking, what? What does any of that mean? That's okay, because it tells you how to fix it. And if the whole idea of getting Google to work for you, SEO, sounds confusing, Ahrefs also offers helpful tutorials on search engine optimization. Don't leave this stuff to chance. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and get this free tool working for you today. There's a link in the show notes as well. That's ahrefs.com/AWT. Ahrefs is spelled AHREFS. Thanks to Ahrefs for their support. Right now, though, let's get back to our chat with Fredde. And so, how do you divide up your time, whether it's your day or your week, between all of these things? Is it your logistical mind working wonders?
Not really. I think I do have a tendency to work a bit too much more than I should. But thanks to a lot of good friends now, I'm getting a bit better at setting boundaries for when that happens. So at the moment I run the youth group on a Sunday, which means that I force myself to take at least one day off in the week as well, because I don't get a full weekend. And I just make sure that I take days off and don't work, which means that nowadays I don't post every day on Instagram, because I just need time to not do that and do something else. I have a little bit of a tendency to anything that I start as a creative project becomes a project and not just a hobby. So I'm trying to teach myself to restrain myself a little bit more with that, which works well sometimes, and sometimes I kind of lose control and just I don't know, just go into it without thinking, and you just have so much energy and you can't really stop yourself.
Maybe it's that same force though, which also creates all the good stuff too.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's good to acknowledge that it's okay to take breaks. You don't need to be seen at all times. You don't need to be that active. You can just take a holiday from all of those things if you need to, and just focus on yourself. Obviously now I'm in a very privileged position where I have stable jobs, which means that's more easy for me to do now than it was when I was only working on the back of my freelance work. So, it's you need to take that with a pinch of salt, because not everyone has the luxury of doing that, I guess.
Of stepping away from social media.
Yeah. I definitely felt I was forced to be on there quite a lot, because if I didn't check my messages and stuff, I might lose out on potential work, or if I didn't post that particular day, maybe a person wouldn't see it that could potentially give me work. But now I have a bit more a relaxed relationship to that entire exposure mindset.
And how have you got better at setting boundaries?
I think I just decide okay, today is not a work day. And then I might do a little sketch if I feel like it, but only if it's something that I want to do and it makes me happy. Because I love drawing. I always love drawing. It's hard to say that, oh, you shouldn't draw today because drawing is work if that's something that you really want to do. But you go on walks, you do other things, exercise, read comics, play video games, whatever you need to do to just not focus on showing yourself off for other potential clients or people.
And you have a shop as well, which as we record this, I see that it's on pause. But as an income stream, you have a shop as well, right?
Yeah, I stopped doing that for the past. I think I haven't really done a proper shop release since Christmas 2020.
So when you say a release, so you tended to create one thing and then push that out and then stop again?
Yeah, I used to make batches of ceramics that I then posted on my Etsy so people could buy them, and then I would make another batch, or I would make a batch and take to a market. But now, because I've been quite busy, from September to December, I had quite a lot of illustration work in all kinds of different projects, and then together with my teaching and my youth work, then I didn't really have time to make any ceramics, and it was quite nice to take a break from just answering messages on Etsy and going to the post office. Because normally I would rely on the fact that Christmas was a period, but I needed to produce a lot of ceramics to sell to people, because it's one of the most financially sound times to sell work. But this year I kind of skipped it, and it was really nice to do that. So now I'm kind of slowly starting to make ceramics again for myself, but I will see if I make that into a shop release, or if I just I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a nice place to be able to
Yeah,
not feel like you're beholden to it.
yeah.
Beholden, I never used that word. I pulled that out of somewhere.
I think it's quite important for like anyone who's a freelance creative to have some form of thing that you can kind of choose what to do with and when. So it's kind of your thing. This is why I don't really like take commissions for ceramics anymore, because I'd rather just make the ceramics that I want to make, and then if people want to buy them, they want to buy them. But then I'm not going to like take a special commission because I don't really need to at the moment, which again is a very privileged position to be in. Even though I have worked really hard to be here, but it's like I'm very lucky to have that.
And actually, when it comes to certain jobs and like working with your values, would you say that that has, like deciding to focus on actually this is what I want to put out into the world has helped your business grow?
I think in regards to like thinking about politics and ethics, I definitely haven't made as much money as I probably could have. Because if you think about, it's the same thing I mentioned earlier about like be tokenism as a queer person, and I'm pretty outspoken about like my politics on my Instagram and with what I repost and sometimes when what I draw as well. And I guess there is like this isn't me like shit talking about like other illustrators or whatever, but there is like a type of artist on social media that doesn't really engage with those things and kind of just focus on like a craft of drawing things that are like nice to look at, look beautiful, like engaging movement and like mark making, but it doesn't really like tap into any like pools of politics or ethics or opinions that are like too like radical. Not saying that I'm like a very radical person because I'm pretty vanilla in the circuit of friends that I hang out with, I would say. But like, I do think that is something that has meant that a lot of clients would look at my work and think, he's the person that does those kinds of things. So we can only use him for those kinds of things. And I feel like I used to feel a bit bad about that when I was younger, but now I don't really care because the paths that have opened up to me because I've done that work and like focus on those things are things that leave me feeling more fulfilled than it would doing an advertisement for like Coca-Cola, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And it's the same with, I guess, like making merch as an illustrator to take to markets. Like I don't really make clothes or pins and things like that because all of these things are like made in factories and not a lot of people can kind of like confirm what working relationships are or how much people are being paid, and like finding someone to make anything within the UK that isn't just like plastic based stuff. I don't really like engage with that kind of production either, so therefore it's like that's why I make my ceramics, and obviously ceramics has like a different way of looking at like carbon footprints and like mining of the planet, but at least it's like a bit more contained and I know who like makes the piece and stuff like that, so I feel like I have a bit more control over that kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, Fred, I always do this thing where I ask for 3 facts about yourself to make 2 true and 1 a lie, and let me figure out the lie. What do you have for me?
I landed on these 3, and that is a famous Hollywood star bought a piece of my work, and a pop star once tried to ask me out by buying one of my ceramics, and my graduation piece was shown all over London.
Oh, these are good. Okay, so what was your graduation piece that was shown all over London?
So my graduation piece was the series of illustrations that were a part of Creator Review's like graduate spotlight program that was shown on like advertisement screens all over London during the summer.
Oh, cool. So what, did the college or university or whatever, like, hired the screens?
No, it was Creator Review that like just noticed the work that I'd done.
Creative Review, the magazine.
So the magazine Creator Review, they like just saw the work that I'd done. I don't know if one of their like people had been to my graduation exhibition or if they just seen the illustration on Instagram. I'm not too sure, but they had like noticed it and wanted to like include it in their like marketing program.
Oh, that sounds plausible, especially because under interrogation you were firm. Okay, so a Hollywood star has bought one of your ceramics.
Yes, they are very famous for a franchise that revolves around pirates.
And have you met them? Have you seen a picture of them with it, or was it you were printing out the sticky label and went, "Oh, that person"?
The person that sold the piece for me gave me a very detailed description on how the purchase went down.
And a pop star tried to chat you up or ask you out by buying one of your ceramics.
Mm.
I don't know. When you go for a customer service channel on Etsy, that's one heck of a thing to come out of it, rather than "Where's my delivery?" How did they? Yeah, how did that play out?
Oh, it just slipped into my DMs.
And did anything?
No, I didn't have the piece that they wanted.
Those words play out in so many ways. I'm going to say creative reviews. True, as in the the advertising boards all over London. I love the idea of a pop star sliding into your DMs. So I'm going to say it's the Hollywood star is the lie.
Oh no! Sadly, the Hollywood star is the truth. In this, Johnny Depp came to an art fair in Los Angeles where he bought one of these like plates that has an illustrated butt on it that I made quite many of. And he apparently just walked up and said like, "Oh, it's nice. I want this. I'll have this." So that's like a funny story, even though
Wow.
obviously there's a lot of like weird news around him or whatever, but
Yeah.
it was just like a funny story. And the bit about the pop star is not true. But Will Young did write to me on Instagram once asking me if he could buy one of the urns that I'd made, but I sadly didn't have it. But
Oh.
I don't think that he was asking me out.
That is so good. Well, I'm happy to lose that one. Excellent. Now, Fred, if you could tell your younger self one thing about being freelance, what would that be?
Often when I speak to younger people in general now, I'm always scared I'm going to sound like a freaking pessimist and be like, "Don't do this!" Like, because if my younger self could see what I do now, they would be like, "Oh my god! Like, I can't believe that's like what you did." Because when I was like a teenager, I didn't really believe in my illustrations. I grew up in a place where people don't really like see that as like a possible career outcome. So I guess I took a lot of risks in just like kind of going against that at that age and just like seeing what would happen. So I guess like I would just tell myself like, you're doing the right thing. It is going to like put you in a position where you can't believe like the kind of things you're going to be included in working with and the people you get to like collaborate with. Because as much as I do complain about like things like burning out or people not paying you fairly and things like that, like it's been really hard work and like maybe that wasn't like the healthiest thing at certain points in my life, but I have learned so much from it, and I am extremely proud of the things that I've achieved and the people that I get to work with, and like especially now with the youth group that I run. That is like such a an amazing thing that I get to be a part of, and like I get introduced to all of these like crazy, amazing, beautiful ideas every week when we like meet up. So I would just say you have a lot to look forward to, but just be careful and make sure you feed yourself and don't work too much.
You mentioned burnout
Yeah,
a couple of times. How do you avoid it now?
I think if I get the feeling that I'm like getting close to that, I kind of take the rest of the day off, zone out. At the moment, I'm playing the new Pokemon game because like that's something you can kind of like do and focus on. Or I go for a walk, hang out with friends. I might draw, but I will draw for myself. I won't touch any work. I won't answer any emails. Or I will just postpone certain commissions and ask, "Oh, can I get an extended deadline?" Because most of the time people will say, "Yes, that's fine, of course."
You can recognize it coming now.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely don't have the same tolerance for stress that I did when I was like 26 now. So I can kind of like, there's a little tingle in your stomach and you're like, "Oh, no, wait, maybe." I need a break now. Like maybe I just need to ask for some more time to do this so I can like rest up or
Yeah.
and yeah, I guess it's like when you start off, it's kind of hard to ask for those things because you don't know what's going to happen, if people are going to think that you're like weak or not capable. But in reality, like everyone has moments like that, and like deadlines are just made up dates and they don't actually mean anything. Because that's kind of like the truth. Any deadline that anyone sets you is just like a made up figure, and it might be for like a historical date or event. But even if that's like the case, like it's all of it is just it's just in people's minds. Like deadlines doesn't exist really in that sense.
Yeah, I love that. It feels like there's an importance in community as well to you.
Yeah, because I started my illustration career drawing all of these like posters for club nights and stuff, and like people were paying me. It wasn't like it's not these like high budget commercial projects, but like the venues of East London and just London in general, like they have employed me, or the people that run events that have employed me. They sustained my life for a good couple of years, and I have a lot to thank for that. So it would be weird of me to capitalize on queer culture in that way and not try to like give anything back. Because if you're a queer artist that does a lot of work around like queerness and identity, and you get these like high paid jobs, like I took a job from WhatsApp for Pride last year, which was like a really well paid job. But then if I would have taken that and not engaged with the community myself at all, then I think that would have made me feel quite shit about myself.
Yeah. Fredde, it's been so good to talk to you, and it's interesting actually. You know, like that whole you do one thing and there's like a knock. Like you were just, for example, doing in lockdown digital portraits, which sustained you, but also that knock-on effect of who knows where they're going to end up and who might see your work. And it was one of those portraits in lockdown, I'm pretty sure, that then got mentioned on the Homo Sapiens podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Which I happened to be editing, and then went, oh, I'm going to check out their work. And so off I went.
That's so funny.
Down that rabbit hole. But that's how, it's lovely how these things work. So, really great talking to you. Obviously, as for all of our guests, go to beingfreelance.com, check out Fredde's work and links through to the website. See for ceramics, which sadly you might have to wait a long time to ever be able to buy again. They are so cool. I love them. So, you can check out all the images, follow on Instagram, say hi, and also, of course, links through to the Queer Youth Art Collective as well, which sounds amazing. Congratulations on what you're doing with that. So that's all at beingfreelance.com. But for now, Fredde, thank you so much, and all the best with Being Freelance.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So there goes Fredde. And as I mentioned, I discovered him because of the Homo Sapiens podcast, which I edit. There was just a mention to him and his portraits. And if you are part of the LGBTQ plus community, or for that matter, if you're not, because I'm not, but I still love listening to it, I hugely recommend it. You're listening to this, right? You must like podcasts. While you've got your app open, if you've not heard it before, there's so many episodes because it's been around for years. Do yourself a favour and listen to Homo Sapiens as well. Being Freelance is made by me, Steve Folland. I edit podcasts and videos for a living, and this is something I do on the side. If Being Freelance makes a difference to you, please do support it by going to beingfreelance.com/coffee, where you can top up my virtual biscuit tin. Basically make a donation either as a one-off or on a monthly basis. If it's been helping you a long time, you can support it long time as well. Long time? Long term? Probably works better. Hey, listen, I'm out of here. You have a great week. Being Freelance.